What happens when the hero's faith is tested? When everything they fought for crumbles before their eyes? Imagine leading a kingdom your entire life, trusting in the divine, believing that when the moment comes, help will arrive. But then, at your weakest, you realize no one is coming. What do you do then? That's what we're going to learn today about Donovan, king of all of Enosh, here on Free Your Mind. Hello and welcome to Free Your Mind. I'm your host, Quentin, and I will be reading from my book, T.D.F. Book 1, presents The Seven Kingdoms. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we're here in the prologue, Year 0 of the Dragon War. All right. Now, everyone was dead. Connor, LG, Raoul, Willow, Mason, Corbin. The 6 brave Enosians who had battled alongside him lay scattered about. Donovan was weak, his body having been pushed to its max. In the distance, his sister Ariana, his beloved Lady Dragon, was being tortured, held against her will. Zula's cronies were forcing her to watch his demise. The Overlord picked Donovan up with his claws, holding him right up to his demonic gaze. I was born of flame, birthed by the darkness. I have conquered many realms. Zula slammed Donovan onto the ground, not yet done with torturing him. No one will stop me from conquering this. Not you, not your little hocus-pocus sister, not your army of white knights and mystics. He pushed his foot into Donovan, nearly embedding him into the soil. The heavens will not allow the charade to continue. Donovan managed, his voice raspy. You're dealing with power. You do not understand. The king struggled to finish. The ground was littered with the dead bodies of his people, his kingdom. The family and their pawns had brought the realm of Enosh to its knees. Sounds of Tus the Devourer burrowing and tearing through the land echoed behind them. The skies were red as fire, and everything around them burned. The other beta demons lined up next to their master. Donovan, the king of Enosh, gripped tightly to his holy sword, Sojul, as he was dragged closer to Overlord Zula. Slumped over, the Enosian king could only think about how there would be no future for Enosh. The Overlord kicked him over. The family and I have slaughtered your people. Where was your God? Where is he now? Zula preached as Donovan struggled under the forceful weight of his foot. These heavens, have they saved you? No. You underestimate our Creator. You underestimate the power of the heavens. Donovan continued to wheeze as he spoke, struggling under Zula's heel. Zula saw how close his prey was to breaking. The Overlord had solidified his conquest of Enosh, and there was nothing this King Donovan could do to stop it. The demon Overlord then manifested his own sword from hellfire. He raised it up by the hilt, the metal of it shimmering within hellish flames. You and your family have come to the end of your physical existence. With the darkness, Zula buried his burning tip of his sword into the back of the king, its sharp, angled edges slicing through him like soft butter. Zula was more than prepared to devour the soul of the Enosian king. Your soul shall now be mine to deliver into the pit. Donovan took a final breath, and fearless in the face of opposition, an overflow of heroism in their moments of desperation, a king and his kingdom battling against the supremacy of evil. This failed to stop Overlord Zula and the family from successfully conquering Enosh. With his sword buried within his prey, Zula figured the king dead. He prepared himself, ready to finally taste the detaching soul of this dying body. Enosh was finally his, and soon the orb and access to the garden, to the heavens, would be also. Suddenly, a giant beam of light shot from the sky into the castle, illuminating every orifice, nook, and cranny. The family's collection of demons and monsters alike tried to run, to escape. They tried to hide from the light. Zula could even feel it trying to pierce into him. It was as if the light itself was alive. He turned away, feeling the diminishing of the darkness within, as he was bathed in the holiest light ever experienced. Zula couldn't believe the turning of tides. He'd never fallen before anyone in any realm before. When the light of the heavens had subsided, Zula had been deposited upon the ground, his family strewn across it like used rags. Hovering above him was a man covered in all white and trimmed in rose gold, his coverings fitting him like a second skin. His floating white hair seemed to defy the laws of gravity. Once High King Donovaan, he was now the Dragon King. The Dragon King quickly summoned his new soulmate, a pure celestial beast of both soul and spirit, the White Dragon. The beast was menacingly beautiful. It was long and white with a pinkish underbelly. It was a four-legged wingless dragon with the long talons and a face that was beyond ferocious. Its teeth looked razor-sharp and intimidating. The Dragon King had no sovereignty over it. It was as if he and the beast shared the same soul. Together, the Dragon King and White Dragon were whole. The heavens had spoken. The Dragon King decreed, moving toward Zula. A giant sword of light materialized in his hand. Zula refused to accept defeat. The alpha demon rose up, exuding flames of hellfire. The swords met, the darkness versus the heavens, a demon overlord versus a dragon god. Their battle was fierce, but in the end, there could only be one successor. A move of precision by the Dragon King. Slice! Overlord Zula lost his head. His family of evil gasped, shocked into despair by such a deed. Every able-bodied member of the family came for the Dragon King. With the White Dragon wrapped around him like a shawl, Donovaan, in his new power, extended out a hand. The heavens have decided to be merciful and give you this one opportunity. You and your festering lot will be gone from this land, never to return. Portals of various colors opened, sucking and pulling at the invaders. They battled against it, still trying to get closer to the Dragon King, but the new god's power was greater than their own. One by one, they were yanked, like weeds from the very ground, devoured by these portals. When the last of them were gone, the Dragon King closed said portals. He bowed his head and gave up his hold on the power of the White Dragon and the heavens. It is finished. All right. Well, that's the end of the prologue here. Birth of the Dragon King. You saw how he came to be. All right. So, what is the next thing? Well, the next thing here is to go through some questions, right? Some things you might be wondering. This is what I like to call the author's reflection. All right. So, question number 1. What drove me, to depict Donovaan at his lowest, stripped of power and surrounded by devastation? Well, honestly, the story has to start somewhere. All right. This is no better place, I think. It's an introduction into who we're really dealing with. All right. How does this moment define his leadership? I think it really shows that he was willing to go to any length to save his people. All right, question number 2. Donovan believes in divine intervention, yet no help arrives. What does this reveal about his personal faith, and how does it impact his resolve? Well, his personal faith has to do with less of a savior, so to speak, and more of being in tune, I think, with nature itself and giving praise to that power, that source that created everything. And the orb is a physical manifestation of that to him. So in that at that instance, right, when he called out to source, to the heavens, right, it was something new for him because he had done all that he could. So that was really the next step. All right, question number 3. Zula taunts Donovan, taking pleasure in his suffering. What makes Zula more than just a villain? What deeper motivations or ideology drive him? Well, I would say that Zula is not really acting on his own. He's under orders. He is serving his creator, his God, the darkness. And that darkness is what is propelling him, is making him, is driving him. It's what causes him to end up in Enosh in the first place. You know, you get to learn more about that in more books later. But that's where we are now. All right, question number 4. What state were the 7 kingdoms in before this war? How does their downfall reshape the world's power dynamics? Well, this really takes place not anywhere else, but in the center, the heart, the beating, I guess the beating heart or the pulse, the beating pulse of Enosh as a whole, which is, you know, the well, you'll learn later, it's called Capital City. That's what it's called. That's where the castle is, and that's where Donovan lived, and all that stuff. So that's where the orb is. It's in the heart of that, and that's where the family ends up going to get this thing that they need, apparently, to you know, finish their objective. All right, number 5. I used vivid imagery, desolation, divine silence, the consuming power of sus. Right. What thematic elements do you intentionally, or did you intentionally weave into the scene? Well, you know, I really wasn't, I think, thinking about thematics. I was really just looking at the story as a whole, where like, okay, where, you know, I've got this story that I've kind of crafted and put together. Where does it begin? Right. And I was like, this birth of horror and tragedy and all these things, right, is what created the Dragon King and created everything else to begin with. Right. So that's really where it started. I wasn't trying to interweave really much of anything. I just needed to give it a beginning that made sense, you know? So, and I honestly created Team Dragon Force before Donovan even existed in this form. You know, he was really more of a Jaga, you know, the caretaker, the ghost that came to Lionel, that was his descendant, and kind of like gave him all of that. And he was more of that type of character originally, before I decided to move into the whole Dragon King direction. So, all right, last question. Does Donovan's suffering forge something new within him? How does he evolve from this point forward? Well, you know, I would say that that's something that you have to wait to see, because you're only meant to see what you saw or visualize what you did with the story that I've given you so far about Donovan. You know, his history will unwind as the books do. All right, so, but there you go. That's that kind of does it for this first look into the Seven Kingdoms. All right. So, let me know what you thought. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. There's going to be a link to the book in the description to purchase the book. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. All right. Once again, my name is Quentin, and I'm your host. Thank you for coming to Free Your Mind.